Hey everyone, I'm Chris. I recently had a chance to sit down with a good friend Kathy and do an interview based on some of the questions that have been coming up over the campaign for the last few weeks. Whether the questions were campaign related or just about our personal life and what's going on. We've took portions of that video and of that interview that we're going to roll out, and so this is one of those portions. We hope you enjoy. Thank you.
So what skills and traits do you have that will make you able to carry off this pretty large task?
And I think part of that's bringing people together. I think trying to be somebody that's going to unify others, being open, honest, transparent, being willing to sit down and to leave my ego at the door, to bring the people necessary. As I mentioned before, a lot of the things that we're looking to do for infrastructure, economic development, and recruiting business requires working closely, not just with the city of Jasper, but also with the city of Nelson, the town of Talking Rock, other key groups that are there with our new economic development director that's just been brought into the county, with civic and local nonprofits. We've got authorities that are there that we actually have to work closely with. So I think trying to find a way to bring all of these people together and work closely for the solution, so that it's not just one person's idea, it's not one person's dream, but it's a collective group working toward the same common goal. Historically, I don't think that that's something that's been a priority. I think it's recently become more so. I think that through different elections, through whatever the processes may be, but there now seems to be an interest in, hey, let's stop fighting, let's start working together. And I think that's one of the bigger strengths through managing events that I've had in my past, through the days that I spent working at the Chamber of Commerce, through working with community relations and trying to listen to the needs and concerns of people in my current job. I've constantly been working to hone those skills. I think another part is just continuing to train and to listen. One, being in tune with what the needs of our public is, listening to what they have to say, giving them an opportunity to ask those questions, giving them an opportunity for you to respond back, to try to listen and make sure what we're doing is in the best interest of the people and the citizens of the county. It gives that opportunity to kind of grow that idea. But I think the biggest part is just that kind of that collective unifier, for lack of a better word.
Well, in doing all of this, of course, the budget's going to be a huge part of the job. What do you feel comfortable handling such a large budget?
I think I would actually be nervous if anybody ever said that they were comfortable, especially with it being the money that's the people's money, is it's taxes that are collected. I think you've got to make sure that you're always aware of where this came from and that you're there entrusted to make sure it's managed properly. So from a concept of, I hope I never reach a point where I'm comfortable with a $28 million budget, because I think that once you get comfortable, you get loose. You start to make decisions that aren't as concerned about every dime and how that was raised. So from that side, I'm not comfortable, but I do know that number is also managed the same way that somebody with a $20,000 household budget would be. You've got to be careful to make sure you meet the priorities. You've got to meet the essential needs. You've got to be able to ensure that you can do it with what you have. Otherwise, you end up in trouble. It's the same concepts with budgeting, with avoid debt. Do everything you can to maximize what opportunities you have. Make sure you start with your needs first and expand out into the other areas that are there. So when you talk about certain services, we've got to meet those needs. When you look at a breakdown of our current budget, 50% of that budget is public safety. Half of it goes to law enforcement, half of it goes to fire and EMS and 911. So you have 50% of your budget is already kind of dedicated toward public safety, which I think is a number one job that the people expect government to do. You still have the remaining 50% of that budget to be managed and to be able to look into, to work with all the other elected officials and their budgets. Each department, and how are you going to maximize every single dime that's there and try to make the most thrifty decisions that you can to be sure that you're staying within range. So not from a sense of comfort, but from a sense of willingness to take on that trust and to constantly look to the people to say, hey, we need to watch every penny that's being spent.
So how do you propose handling the budgetary process?
So I think I may understand the question. Working in a county office, I've been able to kind of be a part of seeing how the budget process works. And currently, at the last quarter of the year, elected officials are brought in to be able to discuss their budgets or their needs so that those are done. So there's a very limited window of time between late September to December before these budgets have to be voted on and approved for the upcoming year. One of the biggest things I think is that process needs to be moved back and began at the beginning of the year. There should never be a surprise at the end of the year when the actual budget numbers are being presented. It should be something that we're all aware of. I know within the Board of Commissioners, within the departments that they manage directly, they may be more familiar, but you also have the Clerk of the Superior Court's office, you have the Coroner's office, you have the Sheriff's office, and you have all the other elected officials that need to be able to be a part of that process early, the judicial offices. All of those things to where you do know where those needs and where those concerns are, and you're not just waiting to the last minute to say, well, there's not enough money or there is enough money. I do think that there's got to be a balancing act of always kind of planning ahead and not just looking at a one-year plan, but when it comes to capital improvements, you know, at what point are air conditioners probably going to start wearing out? They're not meant to last forever. What time are vehicles going to start wearing out, so that you're ahead of the game, so that you know 3 years in advance when you're going to need to replace certain items, so that you have budgetary ideas in place to fix those needs. It's bringing everybody to the same table, kind of what you talked about earlier with, you know, what traits do you possess? I think it's being willing to sit down and bring all those people together so that we can try, not just as a commission chairman, and as a board of commissioners, as the collective board of commissioners, to take a look at that throughout the year so that it's an ongoing planning process so that we're not surprised or caught off guard.